everybody. Thank you for being here. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I want to thank the Vice Mayor for still speaking to me after sticking me with that crazy meeting last weekend.
12 ordinances.
I heard it went off without a hitch, so I really appreciate it. I owe you dinner or something.
How are you?
We don't have any presentations next week, strangely enough, so we'll jump right into our public hearings. The first one is a resolution to solicit public comment for consideration during the development of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. We have some comments that have been already entered into the record. One from Barbara Blakis back in October regarding the 1481 building. Some thoughts on that, and additional comments have come in from one individual who was outside of the town limits, and we have directed, I think it was her, to the Hunter Mill District Board of Supervisors and thanked her for her interest. So hopefully they'll keep coming in. They have been entered into the record, and I will call on Bill Ashton for any comments you may have for us.
It is just a short report from me. This is the annual exercise where we open public hearings so we can actually elicit comments from people that come to the podium. There won't be any briefing on numbers. There won't be any, because we're not quite there yet. There won't be any true staff report from me in the process. It'll just be opening a public hearing to elicit comments, and folks come up to the microphone and discuss them. So that is.
So this is like our official welcome to budget season public hearing. And
let the games begin.
All right, and so certainly not the only time for a public comment, but it's kind of opening the door and hoping that people start to come forward. Are there any questions or comments for the town manager? Yes, sir.
Just want to say I'm grateful to the staff for this. My first budget process in 1998. I was elected in November, and we didn't have a budget. We were supposed to have a budget prior to me joining council. It didn't get passed until December. And more importantly, we were having meetings, public meetings at 5 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night, so public really couldn't comment on them. So I appreciate the transparency and having it open to everybody in the process. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions on the budget? So
Sadly true.
Yes,
believe I gave you one about trash. Could we compare the
Yes.
staffing?
And actually, I meet
compared
with them
to-
tomorrow.
Okay. And then,
what was that question?
so that one was to compare how the staffing, whether it's gone down, the cost of staffing with the additional new trucks with the farm.
Yep.
And also, in the event people are still saying that they would like to have the glass picked up, is there any way you could give us a cost on what that?
Defibrillators outside, Tim.
It will, not that we're doing it, I want people to be aware that this isn't just, that this is a whole nother truck that's gonna have to pick this up
Correct.
and cruise.
Another crew, another truck.
And how much does it cost to do that? That's, I mean, and people need to know that,
We'll
if
put-
that is
They've
something.
started answering those questions to me. I'll get those to you.
I completely agree with you, because people are very often saying, why don't we just pick up glass? We're a town, we could do that. So we could do that, but
Yes, we
how
could.
much does it cost? So
How much does it cost?
How much
So
does it
I've got mine by the door, and I just put it in my car, and then when I do forget it, I move it to the front seat, because I'll ride around, and then I'll hear it clicking back there, and then I finally go, okay, put it in the front seat, and then I'll remember.
does your new car have one of those check the rear seat alerts? Like we had a rental car that had that recently.
Yes, but I just put it in the floor of the front seat, and then I can at least see that it's in the car, because if it's in the back, I don't see it. And then the police pull me over, and it's really not a good scene. But, okay, that's it.
Are there any other comments or questions on the budget item? Nope. All right. Next is an ordinance to approve and authorize the signing of a lease agreement between the town and the Eldon Street Players for space at 717 Lynn Street. Turn it over to the town attorney. This is the depot, right?
I was going to say, for
Okay.
those of you that don't know, this is
know
the
that was the
depot,
address.
and for those of you that don't know, NextStop has been leasing space there for 3 years. The town is currently party to a 2-year lease with options for 2 one-year extensions. So it's been 4 years, wow. The current lease expires at the end of this month. They requested to renew. They've signed the lease agreement. It is currently, the rent is $1. The term is month to month, and it will begin on March 1st, and it would expire on February 28th, 2023. So it's for 3 years. Very very simple. They lease the tiny little quarter part that is closest to the Town Hall Square. And questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions or comments, anybody? Sydney?
I'm Wonder Woman.
I wonder if at some point in the future, a future council may decide they want to do something different with that space. Is there any way to break the lease?
Oh, yes, it's month to month.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I believe they need to give 30 days notice. I think we said 90 days, to be fair.
Yeah.
That space is limited by the terms of a land lease with the Park Authority.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
So it's limited in what can actually occur there.
And scope, yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila?
So, that reminded me of a question a constituent asked. Is that whole little triangle WNOD park land, or just where the depot is? Like the lawn in
Well,
front, up to Eldon Street?
I'd have to, I don't want to answer that question.
Okay, you
because
don't have to answer it.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Bill's looking at me, but it is a limited area. I mean,
Because you have utility right-of-way, that's what I was trying to explain to them. I said, I'll find out. There's utility right-of-ways, WNOD, and
well, but as far as ownership goes, the entire triangle, maybe you could sketch out for me where you're thinking.
where the grass is green.
Yeah.
Where there is grass.
Okay. It
Someone
probably is
thought-
Park Authority
Yeah,
property.
someone thought we should put a building there, and I said, I'll check, but I don't think that's an option.
No.
I'm just answering someone's question.
But I'm happy to answer that more completely for you.
And just let me know when you find out.
Thought I
Even if
had a
it
map here.
wasn't, I feel like we've seen a sketch that had that on it at some point.
Oh,
but I
yeah, they
don't-
do.
Yes.
It's
I
not
can't
this
recall
one.
exactly.
Yeah, that's what I told them, that was my memory, but I couldn't remember where everything was, but thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments on the lease? All right. That brings us to what I think is our only general item, which is a resolution to amend Resolution 16G03, which was adopted in January of 2016, which established a policy for the disbursement of town funds to nonprofit organizations. This item is a result of the council's work session discussions on December 3rd and January 21st. And Jenny Tripoli, oh, she's so fast, I'm like, she was just right there. Yeah, she is here with staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In our quest to simplify things, we realized that, and we touched on it at the last meeting, that there were some more unanswered questions. So what we're doing, you'll notice there's a lot of line through in this proposed resolution. It isn't that we're getting rid of in-kind and sponsorship, it's that they deserve their own resolution because there's a little more involved with that. So this resolution deals with the cash donations only. It greatly simplifies the process. Folks still do need to submit a full application so that you all know what they're doing for the town, what their mission is, how they're gonna use the funds, and the amount they're requesting. But what we have done is removed the reporting requirements and removed the payment in 2 payments. We would pay, once the budget is adopted and the fiscal year begins, we would pay the donations in July. So that saves a lot of paperwork and time. We will put in front of you the resolution for the in-kind and sponsorship during the next cycle, so that you could weigh in, obviously. But there were since there were questions about that and we had questions too, we just wanted to be very thorough and not hold up the cash donation process, which is fairly simple. So that's what this resolution does. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions for Jenny?
Pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, glad we're getting that taken care of. That brings us to roundtable. Who would like to start us off? Mr. McKenna.
I would like to start off, I'd like to say, because it's been scuttlebutt in town, I am engaged to be married. So,
Good news.
yes, so Melissa resigned from the planning commission, and when she resigned, the next day I got on bended knee and asked her to marry me to alleviate any sort of you know, conflict that may have been seen there. But even though the town lost a person who works hard for this town, I gained a fiance and I couldn't be happier. So I want to thank everyone for their well wishes, and I want to thank just the town of Herndon for being just an amazing place to live, because to be quite frank with you, I moved here in 2012, 368 pounds and a broken man because my mom and dad had passed away, and 106 pounds later, my personal life is doing great. Having, you know, work is going well, and I just love serving this town. So thank you to everybody, and it's been a true blessing being in 20170, and it is 4.2 square miles of endless possibilities.
Congratulations. Wow, somebody else should have gone first.
I have nothing else to add.
Who's up? Sydney.
I went to a great meeting. It can't really compare with proposing to your beloved, but the Fairfax County Economic Development Commission, that's not the FCDA, it's the county one, internal one for the Board of Supervisors. And we had some really interesting conversations about affordable housing, paying for affordable housing, which was really interesting. And some presentations from Jonathan Adelbert, I think is his name, or I think that's what it is. He's a venture capitalist and also teaches at Marymount University, very focused on entrepreneurship. And we talked a lot about different things that should happen, and one of them is placemaking, and virtually everything they talked about is something we are already doing. So that is a huge shout out to our staff and this council and previous councils and councils before that, because it's pretty apparent that making a place that's identifiable, that has a personality, that has a community, that knows each other and helps each other, that is what people are looking for. And we're losing graduates, high-tech graduates in this county to San Francisco and LA and places like that. And one of the speakers said, just sit back and relax, because they have a much worse housing problem than we have, and eventually they're going to come to us. So it was a really inspiring meeting, and Dennis Holste was there as well.
Was that the government Zoom today?
Yeah. And we got very inspired and are going to get together and talk with some of those people about different things we can do, and then bring that back to you all. So it was a fantastic, inspirational meeting. Victor, who's the new head of the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, the one that you're all thinking of. Oh my God! I mean, I was surprised people didn't like kneel and start. Some did. It was pretty impressive. He's a bundle of energy, and he's all about collaboration. And his focus is on collaborating with Maryland, but I think we can all see that we benefit from collaborating with our neighbors, and he's determined to make that happen. I know, right? So, anyway, it was a great meeting. It's not getting engaged, but I think it was pretty inspiring.
Yeah,
anyway.
for sure.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Jen? No? Anything? Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Not prime, but hope we can be neighbors.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well,
We had a-
you both a sweater.
We had a PBAC committee meeting, and just to report, a lot of excitement out of potentially what we could be doing coming into the budget cycle. I think the majority of folks agreed that there's enough low-hanging fruit in the CIP list, as we did last year. So look for us to kind of prioritize a little wish list, nothing big, but look for that to be coming to the budget discussion.
We got your note about the Granicus of the feedback minutes and agendas.
Yes.
And we're working on that right now.
Awesome.
We should hopefully have something to
Oh, put it on
shortly.
Granicus?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great idea.
Yeah,
that's a great
Oh,
idea.
that's the chair. That was the chair's idea.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, and we're going for bronze. I think we were submitting yesterday, so that's looking good.
Good luck.
Which award is that?
The certification.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
that's right, that's
Yep.
right.
Good luck.
Start here.
That's
Yeah.
right. Start where it's a table, I agree. Anything else for us? No? All right. Matthew? Oh, or, I'm sorry, Pradeep, I thought you waved me out, but maybe you didn't. Okay, thank you.
Well, I had an opportunity to meet, who I've already met, Dan Alcorn, who's the new Hunter Mill supervisor, but also the new, Walter, I'm sorry. the new supervisor for Ashburn, Loudoun County, so he's brand new, first time serving ever. So, got their cards, talked to them both about, with Walter, he of course is familiar with us sharing paths and biking and so forth, and wants to continue working with us, and then, talking to the new supervisor, because we always have issues with Loudoun, and we always want to have friends on Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, and thank goodness we have Phyllis Randall, so that gives us someone else.
As I remind him, I'm sure all the time, there is a little sliver of that.
That's right.
It just seems so.
Did you know that, Cesar?
I'm trying to think.
It's a drainage ditch.
It's a really-
little sliver.
I know you-
Super
it's-
exciting
hey,
story.
It's technically an enclave.
That will be coming. Super. So,
Right, don't tell Loudon, they'll try to put townhouses on it.
The data center.
Right. Yeah, or a data center. Well, hey, they do that, we get the revenue.
Exclaves and enclaves.
I'm sorry,
So just trying to make nice with our neighbors, in case we.
it's always a good idea.
We'll get thank goodness we didn't get that mulch factory years ago.
Mr. Rogers, the sweater.
oh,
That's right, yeah.
I mean, don't you see it down there?
no, I went,
Representing
I saw pictures of ugly sweater.
Oh, we can do that too.
I win.
Did everybody get a chance? I just have three quick things. Sydney reminded me of something that I meant to say at the last work session. Victor Hoskins with the Fairfax EDA, he's the new Jerry Gordon, if you haven't met him. He has put together a task force, is it a task force? With 10 different localities across Northern Virginia to collaborate together, just like you were talking about. And the towns were like, hey, there aren't any towns on that. You think about putting the towns on that? And so the Town Association of Northern Virginia invited him to come to their meeting. He's very open to it. Leesburg was very vocal about, so we let them take the lead, and we're like, yeah, that'd be nice. But there's, even if it's just some marketing materials that would have our names listed on there.
Sure.
He's super open to it. The problem, I don't wanna say problem, but the thing they're grappling with is just the logistics of having all these different organizations, and you've gotta have bylaws, and like how all the things work together. So if you have seen any of that and you're thinking that we are left out, we are not at the table quite yet, but he's very open to it, and I think it's gonna happen. So I'm glad you mentioned him, because I forgot to say that. I'm heading down tomorrow to VML, and I think Sydney and the Vice Mayor, is anybody else going? No. Okay, and the town attorney, of course. I'm going down tomorrow because I have an executive board meeting with VML, and then we'll be doing all of our VML Day stuff on Thursday, and we have set up, are they confirmed?
Yes,
our
they're
meetings?
confirmed.
I don't know the times,
On
but
the
we have tried to,
schedules.
we've. I
3
think
and
like-
3:15.
Okay, to stop by and try and see our senator and delegate. They may or may not be there, but we have reached out for that.
They
And-
told us they would be there.
Well, I just know,
never
they will
know,
mean to be
though.
there, but we never know what happens in session,
Good
so.
intentions.
But we have definitely communicated with them. And I wanted to share with you, in case you hadn't heard, our friend Kwame Alexander has done it again. He won the Caldecott Award this
Yeah,
year,
Good for him.
and a Newbery Honor Award for his book, The Undefeated. So, go Kwame, we're still taking credit for him. He lives outside of the town, but still has a permanent address. So
He's gonna have
He's
to
in
tell us
England
to
right
stop
now.
if he wants us to.
I know.
I'm just like, he
Yeah.
lives in Herndon.
Well, the poor guy, he texted me, he was like, hey, let's meet at Ice House to celebrate, 'cause that's what we did 5 years ago when he won. I was like, well, there's a little problem.
Change plans.
So, so anyway,
They
congratulations.
serve there, there's tables still.
We can break
Right.
in and bring our own, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure everybody heard that, because that's great news. Mr. Tom Manager.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring y'all's attention to late on Thursday evening, the collective bargaining bill at the state down in Richmond came to my attention. And it was, to say the least, something that was troubling me and certainly many members of the senior management team. Because when the General Assembly went about looking at this, they looked at it from the perspective of state government, maybe some larger counties, and they weren't quite looking at the magnification of the effects of that on smaller jurisdictions. And so actually, while we were working on a myriad of other things late last week, worked on this quite a bit late last week over the weekend to get just some points in front of them, pretty much talking about the magnifications I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Something that Scott Robinson, who spent some time managing a union shop in a previous life, brought to my attention. A small workforce such as the town's, the labor union may not be represented by the labor group may not be represented by a union that knows anything about the labor group. just because of the size of everything. Case in point, the one he brought to my attention was he managed a fire station that was represented by the Food Workers Union. And so there were a lot of issues there. We also went out and talked to Davenport about what it would do to our credit rating, and this could affect credit ratings for small localities throughout the Commonwealth. In the eyes of the ratings agencies, I'll read what Davenport wrote to us. In the eyes of the rating agencies, the absence of unions creates greater financial control and flexibility to a Virginia local government versus local governments in other areas of the country that have unions. As a specific example, Moody's Investor Service provides all local governments with their highest possible institutional framework score due to the fact that Virginia local governments have greater budgetary control over their personnel expenditures than local governments with collective bargaining agreements. This institutional framework score helps to offset other weaker factors like size of the jurisdiction in credit rating methodology, and thus allows Virginia local governments like the town to maximize its credit rating. If the credit standing is weakened, the cost of borrowed money would increase and thus reduce the town's ability to afford to finance its projects. That was from Davenport on this. The other concerns were about the bill itself. There was no local government representation anywhere on the control board. It was a state rep, it was a union rep, and it was an at-large rep. There was no, and as I pointed out in something I'd written earlier over the weekend, is I would even go as far as to say you need to have a large local government and a small local government representation, because small local governments have special needs that are not represented by the larger local governments. I was concerned this wasn't studied, and because it will come with significant financial impact, as we see on the LIS site. Various jurisdictions, cities, and towns chiming in with millions of dollars of estimated impacts to their budgets as a result of this. It would certainly have problems in some of the things we have been doing in terms of getting some of the employees that were carrying a lot of issues, such as if we had an employee that was operating CDLs and had a history of substance abuse, and we put them on probation and they're not remediating themselves, we couldn't get rid of them in this situation where now we can. And I'm not going to put a CDL out on the street that cannot pass a drug test or an alcohol test. Same thing with, we had workplace violence issues down at the shop that we were able to get rid of those people that were creating an unsafe work environment for the coworkers. We've had similar things at the police department where we let go officers that may have had truthfulness issues that we have let go not in the past couple of years. Truthfulness is a serious thing. There's a law that states that if you have a truthfulness issue, you cannot testify in court. So I can't put them on the streets. Mm-hmm. So what do? I move them into the station and make work job, and in a jurisdiction our size, we're going to be adding police officers that are unnecessarily needed. So even though there is no, in the bills, there was no direct collective bargaining power to look at wages, personnel cost would increase as part of this. I was also deeply concerned about, I've never seen a CBA where you didn't have specialization of labor identified in a CBA, collective bargaining agreement. Yeah. So my trash collectors that push snow and run snow blowers at schools and down on the downtown sidewalks, would I be able to with flexibility move them from these various things? Trash only keeps them occupied a certain amount of the time. Could I use them other places? The Herndon Festival, we take the entire shop, move it down to set up and tear down the Herndon Festival for a week and a half. Would that survive if we had to go out and buy separate labor to get that to happen? Again, driving up these personnel costs. These issues are deeply magnified on a jurisdiction our size, much less, and I feel for the jurisdictions of Southwest Virginia, that are smaller than us that would have to deal with these same issues that we're having. One of the other things I pointed out here is in a jurisdiction our size, one of the things I kept hearing about is they're trying to get the employees seated at the table, which in a large organization I get that, I understand that. But in an organization our size, I know every one of our employees by name. I talk to them incessantly. We solve problems all the time. That's what we do. And we have a culture of doing that here. They are here. Are they better represented by just telling me their issues, or from a union official hundreds of miles away that would come in here and not know those same employees like I do, like their directors do? Again, any positive that would would happen for us would be beset with a myriad of negatives. And it was something that was troubling the chief quite a bit, was troubling Tanya quite a bit, troubling Jenny quite a bit, Scott, and they all chimed in with their thoughts, and we put them together and made them known in terms of just this needs more study in terms of what the effects are on local governments our size. So I'm not saying this isn't something we ought not to do as a state. I don't get involved in politics. That's a state political question, and I'm not a political person. That isn't my job. But my job is to tell you what effect this would have on our operation, on our budget moving forward. The fiscal pressures it would put on our budget would be significant, and you're seeing that from other jurisdictions if you go out on LIS and look at the commentary out there. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. We've been spending a lot of time working on that over the past few days as well, and that's all I have.
Phil?
Mr. Ashton, would it make any sense for, like, the reason, there's a strong parallel between this and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. The reason why I say that is because the initial writing of Sarbanes-Oxley said that all corporations had to fall under, because it was written after Enron, did the Enron thing, and, company stock and everything else. They were required to do policy statements. All employee, there was a vetting process that was going to be labor intensive for all corporate plans, from 0 to as many people they were. But after hearing from different organizations and associations, they were limiting it, so SEP IRAs, simple IRAs within plans, and companies that had less than 100 people were exempt from those situations, which alleviated, companies were going from small to mid. They couldn't do it because if you're paying $35,000–$40,000 in, administration fees for a plan that's $1 million, it's stupid to have one. So, and then what would happen is if you didn't have a retirement plan and incentive for someone to join a company, so it would become a death spiral. So what I'm saying is, would it make sense to possibly find a position paper, which I know exists, in regards to modifying Sarbanes-Oxley, which makes it easier for smaller, which would be a parallel to what's happening now with smaller towns and everything else to Richmond, so they can see what the impact would be. Actually,
one of the earlier versions of the bill, and I think Lisa could probably brief you on that, did have an exception for smaller jurisdictions. And later, as went through further study, that kind of fell out. Not by study, I mean influences from other people, and that kind of fell out.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where it stands today, but that was in at one point, and I think when it fell out is when the alarm bells went off and the flags went up. And this was late Thursday when that occurred.
Okay. I'll find a position, because the parallels, I'm not a rocket scientist on this, but the parallels are obvious.
So where is VML on this?
Opposed?
Good.
Opposed.
I've tried to get it's Senate Bill 1022, and we've been trying to get confirmation. They just met last night,
in committee? Or,
committee,
okay.
yes, in committee. And it appears as though it was a very lengthy and contentious meeting, and it appears as though the two bills, the original version and the later version, were incorporated. We are trying to confirm that incorporation retains the local choice option, but we haven't been able to confirm that. But it's very contentious. VML, VACO, all hands on
Virginia
deck.
chiefs, Virginia sheriffs are all in opposition.
And what's the bill number?
1022.
1022.
1022.
22, yeah. Thank
And
you.
I forget what the House one is. You plan.
9, I'm sorry,
I think the
582.
biggest message is that this would be a very big change, and I believe all big changes should take a lot of study to make sure that.
It is a game changer now.
Budget crippling.
Because I don't know that I'm, philosophically, I get why this could be a good idea and why it's being put forward. I just think we need to
And even
take the time and make sure that we've looked at all of the
Right-sized.
possibilities.
And even in one of these, what a comment I made was that I'm not saying the unions don't have a seat, but you need to get local government involved in this question, and especially small local government, because we do not have the resources as a large local government and state government does to absorb the hits that would happen to the budgets and to operations. And that's all, you know, I'm not taking a position, yay or nay, I'm just saying that it has this will have a significant impact on us, and we just need to think through the effect on small local governments.
So is this more study something we initiate, or something that we floated out as just we should study?
I floated it out there
Okay.
as saying, look, I'm not sitting here saying this isn't a good idea.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that the idea that's currently being put forth is going to have a detrimental effect to small local governments.
But we don't know the full impact of what these fiscal pressures.
Correct. Well, if you look at LAS, some of the jurisdictions, some of the cities, Jenny, you looked it up, so
Yeah.
give me just a couple.
Sure, so there's an impact statement that you can find on LIS right next to the bill. It's 6 pages long, and cities the size of Roanoke on down to Danville, Augusta County. So City of Roanoke estimated close to $29 million impact to them because of an increase on wages. Virginia Beach said 0, but not because it's 0, but because they have no ability to calculate this. They know that it would be significant, but there's no way to know right now. Prince George County is very adamant about the first sentence is this would cost millions forever, is their position. So there is a range of of localities in terms of size and magnitude that chimed in, and that's all for public consumption.
So ultimately, I think for us, we would have to look at a couple things. We'd have to look at how Wall Street will look at our AAA once this occurs in light of all the other factors and changes in the borrowing we've had recently and the borrowing we tend to have. All that would go into a reevaluation of our credit rating. So that's hard to quantify right now, but it is a risk factor. We would have to engage labor lawyers in the mix. That right there, we have a legal cost increase right out of the gate. Until the CBA hits, as we're negotiating through that, it's hard to say, but it's not going to drive costs down. Like I said, specialization of labor would dictate it would go up. Some of these elements of not being able to let folks go, which, by the way, they have protections. Under state law, these employees have grievance procedures that are codified in our policies and procedures, and during disciplinary actions, these are handed to them in written form. An employee that's being disciplined gets it in written form. They have the right to appeal and go through a grievance process, and they are made aware of it. Protections for law enforcement officers, the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights that is observed by our police department as law enforcement officers are being disciplined here in the town of Herndon. I mean, so there are protections for these employees already in place, and we observe them. We are acutely observant of fair labor standards. We do follow the law on anything to do with labor. That is something that we've striven very hard to achieve. So there are protections built in place in what we do and how we do it, and our policies and procedures and how we get things done. So again, that's why I say the benefit to the employee would be offset by the enormous budget pressures on the other side, potential budget pressures on the other side.
So 2 more questions. This Davenport, are they a think tank? Or?
No, they're our financial advisors. You've met them, Kyle.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was
Kyle
something
and
out of.
No.
Okay.
No. I ruined Kyle's Super Bowl kickoff
Okay.
by sending him a text saying, "I need your opinion on this now," and he didn't crack his first beer. He went and did this, and then he said he was going to crack his beer when he was done.
So those are their comments.
That is their opinions, and they were the ones that ushered us through. They're the ones that are very in touch with Wall Street, and they ushered us through the bond rating exercise.
So it looks like Senator Adam Evan and Delegate Kay Corey are sponsoring this.
I thought it was Guzman.
Well, I'm looking at this.
Guzman is the
being-
House.
On the House.
She's Elizabeth.
Oh, it's Senator Boysko in the,
There are
1022.
16 senators.
Okay.
Oh, that might have voted for.
maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Okay, maybe might help to have a conversation, better understand this.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
I just heard from Michelle Gowdy with VML. Apparently, it is so complicated that she says we are working on a comparison of where the incorporated bill is the same and where it's different. And she said, I will send it shortly.
So, from where I'm sitting at the table, I think what we're asking for right now is time to have a conversation and address these concerns, because maybe it's not as bad as we think, but we don't know because we haven't been able to discuss it or look at it together.
And they might not even have.
It might not pass.
Yeah, or they might not
Right.
have information in front of them that would make it, you only know what you know.
That's right.
So this weekend, that's what we worked on, is trying to provide them information from a local
Yeah.
government perspective.
Yeah.
And,
It happens.
again,
Because
just
they
to
didn't really
try.
have that.
They didn't have that prior to this, because again, it came out of nowhere. It
Mhm.
literally was Thursday night. This all emerged. And so, I just want to you all have an incredible staff, I just want to let you know that, because when I put this out, they got after it, and they got after it big. And they got their comments back quickly, they were informed comments, they were, again, incredible senior staff in this organization.
Any questions or comments? Anything else for us, sir? Is that enough?
I think I've had enough going on.
A little bit going on. So speaking of that,
Thanks, Bill.
we do have a need to go into a closed meeting this evening. Is there a motion to do so under section 2.23711A, to consider the disposition of publicly held real estate in the downtown where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body?
So moved.
Second. Bill and the vice mayor, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, that motion, of course, carries. We'll take a quick recess so that everybody can make a break for it, and we do have some staff that will
All
be
right,
staying.
Tom, it's easier to go who's out, John, Tammy, Paige. I think that's about it, John, you're out.